The committee was constituted yesterday. They began work earnestly, and they've gone very far with their work. And we will produce a report, and we will act on the report. Suffice for me to say to you that dealing with galamsey and illegalities in the extractive industry anywhere in the world is quite complicated. And you have some of these challenges and some of these setbacks and so on and so forth. But what is important is for us to assemble the unimpeachable facts first. And then on the basis of the unimpeachable facts, we'll take it from there. Always remember that the people who are purported, and I use this word with emphasis, who are purported to be in the video and alleged to be involved in this conduct, and alleged with emphasis again, are soldiers, are supposed to be soldiers. And if indeed it's established that they are soldiers, it will not be a matter within the remit of the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources alone. It will then be a collaborative effort between my ministry and the Ministry of Defense and the leadership of the Ghana Armed Forces. And as you know, the Ghana Armed Forces is a very astute institution which is very adept at dealing with these matters. So early days yet, let's be patient, we'll get to the bottom of it. The strategy and the program and the goal is that we plant trees in the avenues and the medians of the various streets of our country. Wherever anybody's been to, all the developed countries and cities of our world, any city worth its salt, two characteristics, two key features make the city. Must have a water course or a water body running through the middle of the city. And the medians and the avenues are always planted, or you'll find one type of tree in the medians and avenues of those cities. London is an example, Paris is an example, New York is an example, almost everywhere, even some African countries, South Africa, and so on and so forth. So we are launching this Green Streets project where we are going to make a very ambitious, robust effort to plant trees in the medians and avenues of our regional capital cities. We are beginning with Accra, Kumasi, Takoradi, and Tamale, and ultimately we intend to do so for all the 16 regional capitals of our.
All right, so we kickstart that conversation in terms of basically these medians that are going to be put up, or the trees that are going to be put up in our medians, our road medians. You heard the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources yesterday, and it's one of the matters we're getting into. But we're asking ourselves, of the trees that have been planted already, the 20 million plus, what happened to them in terms of accountability? How many, have survived? The other day when Mr. President said about 85% of them had survived, based on what statistic was that put forward? How much have we put into this by way of cost? And this time round, how much is going to be involved? Value for money issues. But let me say welcome to Bernice Abu-Baidoo, Lansah.
Good morning, Benjamin.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Well,
Do you need
it's
some
another morning.
coffee?
I don't do coffee.
Oh, you don't? So what?
Coffee has the reverse effect on me.
You don't mean it.
I learned that from secondary school.
So
Bishop
what?
Herman
You sleep or you
so.
get tired?
So I don't do painkillers and I don't do coffee.
Okay.
So I drink a lot of water and I weather the storm.
That's good.
That's how I treat.
Then I should get you some water. Good morning to you.
Likely some water would do.
Yes. So we're having that conversation about the trees. I mean, listening to the minister, what pops in my mind is, okay, you've spoken beautifully about how you're going to plant the trees, but you haven't told us how you're going to maintain the trees. We drive in this country. We've seen medians that, initially were looking beautiful, well kept, lawns in the middle, and 6 months down the line, they're growing into the streets. So, Mr. Minister, the big question is maintenance and not so much of the initiative.
The problem with our country is exactly that, maintenance. We don't have a proper maintenance culture. Individually, we don't have a proper maintenance culture, and it's clear how we look after our vehicles, our homes and stuff. It's clear. But then again, this wouldn't be the first time we're trying, because part of this is an urban beautification project, basically. This wouldn't be the first time we've embarked on such. I don't know, but I've become inured, almost pessimistic when some of these things come up. Because like you mentioned, because we don't have a proper maintenance culture, you can also start these things fanciful, but then sometime down the line, the problem is, are they still going to be there? If they are there, how will they look? Will they look like the original plan? And I am also very concerned, especially as we are talking corruption and many other matters, about how much we pump into these specifically. It would be interesting to know, for example, that this specific road median from here to there cost us this much. If we were doing this according to market prices, this is how much it would cost us. Are we going to get value for money? I like to explore all of these angles because I think we're getting sick and tired, if we are not already, as a country, when it comes to, some of these projects and the fanciful things that I said, and the lack of correlation between what is promised and what is delivered.
Talking about promises, we're good at talking, aren't we? Making Accra the cleanest city in Africa.
Yeah.
That's what I'm reminded of this morning.
How has that gone?
Laudable initiative. Everybody will want to see Accra clean. Everybody will want to drive through the streets of Accra and know that, as you drive through it, you're getting some therapeutic benefits as well. Because that's what beauty does. People don't think about the effect it even has on us as a people when we live in beautiful environments. And then you talk about flooding. If Accra is clean, it means that we won't have filth in our drains. And this was a laudable initiative. But where are we now?
Look, I can say for a fact, at least and you know that whichever of our presidents or whoever has become president usually rides on winning the Greater Accra region. I can say for a fact that if we had a leader who would be able to tackle the flooding problem in Accra, that person, or in major cities across the country, but especially in Accra, so that what we usually see, the annual ritual, doesn't pan out, and the measures are put in place and we all see it, that person would have achieved something monumental. Guess what? It's almost as though our leaders were blind to some of those things. I always say that, look, if we do the right things, we probably wouldn't even need to campaign, do much of what, because the people in their faces, I have seen with some policies that have worked, the few ones that have worked, regardless of administration, you would see that the people latch onto it. And it's the people who are basically spreading the word, sending the message out there that this is what is being done. But our leaders simply don't do those things.
So Benjamin, so you ask yourself a lot of questions. Why aren't we able to have the same drive we have when we start projects? It's a natural thing when you're excited about
But you could be making a mistake there. Because the drive that we see from the outset could be a facade.
You're right.
It could be, what do they even call it? So it's a veneer that is being shown, but behind it, look at our road contracts. I was just talking about that in the course of the news review. Do you know how many of our road contracts have been recycled over the years? You ask yourself why. It's because someone is getting a kickback. Someone is buying a V8. Someone is doing this. I said that I know of projects now that I'm getting information on where 3 lanes are being converted to 2 lanes and kickbacks and V8s and all kinds of things in Ghana. The question is why? So sometimes, yes, the person will tell you, I'm going to deliver a road project. But is it your interest the person is looking out for? Or is it in the end, the person's own pockets that he or she wants to line? So I've become inured to some of these things, honestly.
So many things come to my mind as we talk about the correlation between what we say and how it turns out eventually. Remember, the Greater Accra Regional Minister's very strict directive for tricycles that carry rubbish on our roads,
the Abu-Baidoo, among others,
to cease operations. It was a lot of back and forth. The association said we were not contacted. So, look, the problem is, Benjamin, there is a need. These tricycles are meeting, whether we like it or not.
Right. Just like the Okada.
Yes. We have totally failed in our sanitation collection system. Even those that are using private ones are still struggling. There's somebody I know, the rubbish is in front of her house, sometimes 3 weeks, and she's paying every month to a private service provider. So we have a problem. So instead of just coming to say, oh, tricycles, get off our roads because you disrupt the flow of traffic and they don't even have mirrors, side mirrors, it's just hazardous. You don't fix the problem, and so guess what? They are back. And this time, it's worse than before because, like I'm saying, you have some of these private service providers not, providing the service as often as they should. So I feel that sometimes we tackle the problem from the branches and not the roots. And so when we seemingly deal with the problem, it springs up again because the root cause hasn't been dealt with.
It's not been eradicated.
So this particular initiative by the Lands Ministry is a laudable one, but this morning is affording us the opportunity to ask questions about previous initiatives that were meant to, benefit the society, help us progress, And I have said this, and it's not the first time. When I came to Accra for school, because my parents were not here, I used to live around Labadi Villas, which is almost the end point of the Bema Camp neighborhood. And when you walk to Palmwine Junction, you would hardly see a sachet of water on the floor. And this was in 2010. If you go there now, it's an eyesore. So we are not moving forward, people. It's just a back and forth. We would love to see these initiatives work. So like Benjamin is saying, what will it take us if the kickbacks end? Will we see people focusing more on doing the job than pleasing a certain person so they can keep getting contracts at the expense of the people, at the expense of quality roads, at the expense of sustainable projects? Later on in the show, we'll be talking about this report about corruption in Ghana. And trust me, I don't know, Benjamin. It's sad.
Well, I've just been taking a look at some of the figures we've spent over time. The AMA announcing plans to plant 100,000 trees. When you go back and you look at the figures, I always like facts and figures. In other parts of the world where there's accountability, proper accountability, you would notice that, what is spent, there is some commensurability. But here, like I keep saying, oh, we've done this, we've done that. You can't see it, but they say they've done it. So what do? But let's get into this topic of medians when it comes to our roads and get some more scope on it. We are joined by engineer Mahama for some better, understanding of how these drives actually impact us. Engineer Abdullahi Mahama joins the conversation. Engineer, very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Good morning to your viewers.
It's always good to have you. Let me start off by asking you, and we've been a bit pessimistic this morning, but with good reason on the back of some of what we've seen in the past. This wouldn't be the first time we're attempting beautifying our cities or shaping our road medians. But here we are again talking about tree planting. How relevant is this exercise, first of all, in terms of trees? What kinds of trees even should we be looking at? What are the benefits?
Well, I would say a good morning once again to your viewers and listeners as well. If you want to understand the essence of or the benefit of having trees along our highways or some of the roads within the urban centers, I would like a lot of your listeners or your viewers to just drive through the Kwabenya roundabout, through the atomic.
Engineer Mahama, I'd appreciate it if you could speak up just a little for us.
Well, okay. I'm saying I just finished my exercise, that's why. I'm saying that if you want to appreciate the benefit of having the trees planted within the medians and the corridors of the highways and other places, I would like viewers who have actually used the Kwabenya roundabout to the Kwabenya police station, Allied Science University, that road, especially if you are driving during the day and you get within that stretch, there's that serene and comfort. So if you are about to exit within where they have planted the trees at both sides of the carriageway, you suddenly experience that harsh weather condition again. That's almost 1 kilometer or 1.5 kilometer stretch from the Kwabena roundabout. It's an example of having trees, or the benefit of having trees within the corridors of the
Okay.
highway.
Engineer,
Okay.
I'm sorry I have to do this. We're also joined by a key personality on this matter. Please, Engineer Mahama, just hold for me. Let me also bring in Samuel Abu-Baidoo. He's Minister for Lands and Natural Resources for Ghana. Mr. Jinapo, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Good morning, sir, and a very good morning to your cherished listeners and viewers.
Great.
Listeners and viewers, correct?
You're correct.
This reminds me of when I was a teacher. I still am in different ways, but you can just call me Ben.
Okay.
All right.
My good friend.
Thank you for joining. So let's talk about this latest initiative when it comes to planting trees. This time in our road medians. What brought this up? I mean, is it just part of the tree planting Greening Ghana drive? What led to this?
Well, first of all, let me thank you for having me, and let me say a very good morning to your cherished listeners and viewers. As you know, the president has asked us to pursue an aggressive afforestation and reforestation program. And this is what culminated in the Green Ghana project, and which is also giving birth to the Green Ghana Day. And we are all very familiar with how the Green Ghana Day is been performing over the years. Now, in strong collaboration with the Ministry of Local Government, the Parks and Gardens, we are about to launch the Green Streets Project. The Green Streets Project. The Green Streets Project essentially is to ensure that we plant trees in the medians and avenues of our major capital cities. Now, we will be inaugurating the National Planning Committee, God willing, on coming Monday, and then we'll launch the program. We'll launch the project at the appropriate time, which will give the full contours of the program. But suffice for me to say that any city worth its salt, any city anywhere in the world, which is worth its salt and which is fit for purpose, you will have two main characteristics of a city like that. You normally will always have a water body in the middle of the city. Whether it's a river body or a creation, whatever. I mean, anywhere you go to in the world and the city is really well structured, you have a river body, and then you have canoes and what have you, activities going on in that river body. And you also find that trees are planted in the medians and avenues of the city. I mean, for instance, if you go to Paris, there's one type of tree on all the major avenues and major medians of the city. So is it in London, so is it in New York, Cairo, even Abuja, and to some extent Abidjan. So we want to do a similar thing in Ghana here. And we are beginning with the first phase, which will have us roll out this program in Accra, Takoradi, Kumasi, and Tamale. The four major cities of our country will be the beginning of this effort. And then we'll replicate it in other regional capitals, and hopefully in districts. And it may become a standard in our country, so that every town or village or city which has roads will have trees in the medians of those trees. Now,
so we're basically targeting every road median at the end of the day.
Well, we're targeting every, but resource constraints and logistical constraints will mean that we will start gradually. But the most important thing is to begin.
Okay.
And the strategy and the plan is that every city will have one unique tree, so that if you come to Accra, it's one type of tree all over. You go to Takoradi, it's one other tree all over. And so if you saw a picture somewhere, you couldn't even tell which city it was. The type of tree in the picture should tell you that this is Takoradi or this is Kumasi. So it's still early days yet, but this is what we intend to do.
That sounds like a very interesting initiative. So you could go to one major city and you'd notice that it's just one specific tree you're seeing there. And that could also be a form of tourism even. But tell me, is there, I've seen different figures. Is there a budget for this in terms of the outlook? How much are we hoping to spend if we're talking Accra?
It's early days yet. I don't think we can get into issues of budget at this stage. I'm now going to inaugurate the planning committee on Monday. The planning committee will then work out all these details. And I should point out to you that as much as practically possible, we want this to be owned by Ghanaians and residents of Ghana, so we don't burden the public exchequer or the treasury. As you know, we already have enough difficulties with our treasury. And apart from everything else, I believe that noble initiatives such as this should be owned by the citizenry somehow. And for example, Joy News and Joy FM and AM show and all of that. There's a street. You have a street just by your where you operate from. There's nothing that will stop Joy FM or multimedia from adopting that street,
right?
And getting in touch with the planning committee, getting the costs involved, and the maintenance.
We have been in the thick of the Greening Ghana initiatives, and we have also been ably supporting. But I think it's a call that is also valid.
I commend and congratulate you highly for that. But I'm just citing, I'm giving the example just to indicate how we want to approach this, so that corporate Ghana and other entities, churches, and other organizations in our country will take up streets and own them, and with the parks and gardens giving the technical support and so on and so forth. But we'll roll all of them out in due course.
Right. Hello, Mr. Akakpo. Bernice here. So you say you want this to be owned by the people of Ghana. What nature is this project going to take? I'm just reminded of the National Cathedral, where there was a seed money and individuals were asked to contribute. Is this going to be similar? What exactly do you mean when you say the people of Ghana should own it?
Well, the point I'm making essentially is that we need to find clever and intelligent ways of getting things done without necessarily always having to burden the public purse. And, I know, for instance, that during Christmas, the Ministry of Tourism has major streets and parts of Accra runabouts decorated beautifully. And banks and corporate Ghana and other entities do take them up and brand them, and it's a way of also marketing themselves. And so the point I'm making to you, Bernice, is that it's still early days yet. We are still putting it all together. I don't suggest at all that we will not rely on public funds whatsoever. That's not what I mean. We definitely will. But as much as possible, we should have a package which will result in a public-private partnership in executing this and rolling this out. But as I said already, it's still very much in its embryonic stage. We may have to wait for the planning committee to be put in place. They will then cross the T's and dot the I's and come up with a strategy plan, and then we roll it out and announce it to the country, and we'll take it from there.
Mr. Akakpo, there's an interesting bit, two major things that I want to run by you. The first has to do with the discriminatory treatment of illegal miners who are Ghanaian of African extraction, so to speak, and those who are foreigners, so to speak. There's a latest report on some of these matters. And I'd just like to find out from you, why is that? Because if you look at the trajectory over the years, we've arrested hundreds of Ghanaians, if not thousands, hundreds of Chinese, and I'm singling them out because of the peculiar role they are playing in our country. Yet, when you look at the facts and the figures, and I have them here if I have to quote them, so many Ghanaians have been jailed, serving time, even as I speak, but out of the Chinese, of the hundreds, only 2 have been incarcerated. In fact, years ago, we heard Senior Minister Yao Safo-Mafo talk about the fact that, it is in order not to, impact our relations with China and all of that. I'm sure you remember the Aisha Huang situation. Then we have the president come out and say, maybe that wasn't the best thing to have been done at the time, but it was done. But why this discriminatory treatment, especially if you consider the scale of the damage these Chinese and other foreign nationals have caused to our landscape and our river bodies, our water bodies?
Well, so first of all, I take it that you are simply taking advantage of the fact that I'm the minister responsible for that sector to pose this question. Because your producer talked about us talking about Green Street.
Yes, greening, yes, and I admit, I am taking advantage of this. But it is that it falls under your purview. So if you want to...
I'll just set in the records that you asked for an interview on Green Street. But anyway, nonetheless, I'll give you an answer. Yes, so you have a point in terms of how we tackle. As you know, the efforts we are making to clean up the small-scale mining sector throws out different perspectives, different dimensions to the efforts we are making, and all kinds of issues come up which you have to deal with. And you have the situation where the ministry, which I heard, is responsible for the regulation of the sector, but we do so in collaboration with the security agency, and that also has the way that we have to manage it in terms of the tactics and the approach that is adopted. And then when you have people arrested in the process of cleaning up the sector and regularizing the sector, you then have also a situation where you have to prosecute them, and with the prosecution, you are now having to deal with the Attorney General's Department. And when the Attorney General's Department does its work, you are now having to, the ball now shifts into the court of the judiciary, the judges to pass judgment. Those are the imperatives of a democratic society, which you cannot do anything about. So that if you arrest somebody...
But Mr. Jinapo, these are imperatives, legal imperatives that you speak of, but there appears to be clear discrimination when it comes to how the law is applied to us and how it's applied to foreigners.
Chief, you want us to have a discourse so that everybody will appreciate and understand the issues involved. You, very respectfully, you may want me to finish. I was going to address that part of your question as well, but I wanted to give a background so that we appreciate the context in which we are operating. It's not just a question about discrimination and not discrimination, even though I'll answer that as well. So if you allow me, can I proceed to give you an answer? Please. Can I?
Ahead.
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay, so as I've explained to you and to your listeners, so you have all these multifaceted institutions and angles to dealing with this matter. And it is not peculiar to small-scale mining. It is so for all other sectors, whether it's fuel bunkering or illegal fishing on our seas or the drug trade or whatever. This is the constitutional architecture we have, which you have to go through to secure a conviction and slap a punishment. That is number one. Number two, we realized that the law or the criminal regime was not punitive enough. And therefore, we amended the Minerals and Mining Act 703 through Act 995 to make the punishment for foreigners in particular more punitive. I think we took the punishment, the sentencing, up to about 25 years of sentencing for foreigners who are involved in small-scale mining. So that has been done. So is it also that we are even about to amend the law to make sure that the use of floating devices on river bodies called champagne, the ban on them is expanded even more legally. The statistics you put before me, let's assume that those statistics are correct. If those statistics are correct, it is something that we have to interrogate, we have to examine. At what stage is this situation arising, and why is it arising? Is it a case that the judges do not find the evidence sufficient, or the prosecution is not spirited enough, or what is it? We need to examine that. I cannot jump to a conclusion that Ghanaians are discriminated against as opposed to foreigners. For me, as minister responsible for the sector, it doesn't matter whether you're Ghanaian or you're a foreigner. The law must apply and apply fully.
Mr. Jinapo, pardon the interjection. Is this something you're willing to get into? Like you're saying, we have to get into it. We have to explore. Is this something you're willing to do?
It's something that we are examining. It's something, not that I will get it. It's something we are looking at. But first of all, we need to satisfy ourselves that these statistics which are being thrown out there are correct. And if the statistics are accurate, we now need to ask the relevant question. What is it a question of prosecution? Is it a question of lack of evidence? Is it a question of judges not giving the correct judgment or giving the correct sentences? Until you do such a thing, you cannot come to the conclusion that Ghanaians have been discriminated against. I, with the greatest of respect, that kind of conclusion would be premature, if I should say. But suffice for me.
Well, interestingly, we don't have enough time because, like I mentioned, I have the facts and figures with dates and a number of those that I could have given you in terms of numbers of Ghanaians who have been incarcerated, and only 2 Chinese within the period. So maybe it's something that off the camera we could also liaise with you on to feed you with some information, so that that is part of the role of the media, so we can move forward on that.
I'll be very grateful if you furnish me with it. I'll be
Right.
very grateful.
Right.
And when you do so, we will add that to the examination that we are making. And it is a continuous work in terms of how we clean up the sector and how we get foreigners out of it. And as you say, we don't have time to go into it. There are a gamut of measures we've been rolling out and working on to make sure that foreigners don't participate in a small-scale mining sector of our country. But as I say, I'll be very happy and grateful if you share the information you have with me. We will first of all authenticate it, and then it will form part of the work we're doing here.
I shall liaise with my producer so we facilitate you with that. But very briefly, my final bit to you, Bernice will be coming in shortly on another angle, but craving your indulgence. It's very brief. It's nothing, it's something that you are probably familiar with. So I'm sure you've seen that latest corruption report when it comes to Ghana losing 5 billion. That Shraj instigated report in collaboration with the Ghana Statistical Service and, of course, the UNODC. But here's where it gets interesting. Apart from the different dynamics of people having to pay bribes, which is startling, findings from the survey show that the Ghana Police Service, Immigration Service, and the custom officers of the GRA were the top 3 institutions that received bribes. Guess what? Right next to them is the Lands Commission in number 4, the DVLA following, and then the Passport Agency. How does this wash on you? Because different from other reports, which have always been perception, this is not perception.
Yes? What was the question?
So I'm saying that with the Lands Commission, being in 4th spot, and that is also under your purview, your jurisdiction, how does that strike you in terms of corruption? An entity under your jurisdiction is at number 4.
So the reports, I'll go to make time to study the reports, and then I'll form my own views about it, and then we'll take it from there.
Is that to say you've not seen the report yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay, but I'm telling you that the Lands Commission is at number 4. What off the top of your head, what is your reaction to that? You can't possibly be happy, so I know you are not. So what's your reaction?
Well, we need to examine the reports and the question about corruption in our country and in other countries in the world. It's something that we continuously work to tackle. And the gamut of work we are doing in the Lands Commission, the very far-reaching reforms we are putting in place in the Lands Commission, including automation and making sure that human interface is reduced as much as possible. So many things, the digitization of the records of the Lands Commission, systemic and substantive reforms in the sector, which I believe is the surest way, is the panacea for dealing with corruption in any institution in any country in the world. And the digital revolution we're trying to pursue in the Lands Commission and several other places, and as well as the leadership of integrity. The new Executive Secretary of the Lands Commission, Mr. Abu-Baidoo, who is a very professional of astute integrity, and all of those will help. I'm not too sure we have the time to delve into the matter of corruption in our country and state institutions. It's long-standing, endemic, systemic, which requires substantive work and intervention to deal with. And I believe that the government is doing just that, not just with Lands Commission, in almost all aspects of our national life.
I wish, I don't know whether you have the benefit of a television where you are, because you would see that when it comes to the size of bribes, what we've put on our screens currently, the Lands Commission is actually tops in terms of the average bribe size. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt because you've not seen the report. But in Ghana, Ghanaian CDs, the Lands Commission is averagely taking...
If I may come in, first of all, your invitation to the interview was not to discuss this report.
Right. No, that's why I craved your indulgence. I totally accept that.
Let me just, it may be helpful if you listen to me. Your producer invited me for us to have a conversation about Green Streets project. That's number one. Number two, I haven't read the report you are talking about. I'm getting some headlines relating to some reports. If your producer had said, let's have a conversation about land commission, I would have been prepared to give you all the information. I think your listeners and viewers would have been better off.
Right, Mr. Jinapor, yeah, we totally understand, and like you said, we craved your indulgence. Okay, so on the final note of our conversation with you, please, have you heard of the incident in BPAD involving a protest by the youth?
I have.
You've heard that, okay. What have you been briefed about? What briefing have you received?
I think the initial report we have is that there's been two issues. The first one has to do with some chieftaincy rivalry and matters to do with authority who is entitled to perform some rights also. And the second one is also agitation from the youth about employment quota to certain parts of the traditional area. And I've already tasked my deputy minister, who is responsible for mines, Honorable George Mekuduka, to quickly intervene and assemble the facts for us to take it up immediately. So yes, we are on top of that.
Right. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Samuel.
Thank you, Bernice.
We'll stay in touch with you.
We're grateful, Mr. Jinapor, and we will be sending you some of that information that you requested.
I'll be very grateful. Please do that. And let's find time and sit down and do so.
Sure. Enjoy the rest of your day, sir.
Conversation.
Sure, sir. Right. So let's go back to Engineer Abdullahi Mahama. We still have him on the line. Thank you so much for waiting, Engineer. We appreciate that. So we've just heard from the Minister. It appears that there's still a lot of groundwork being done. But from your experience and expertise, what would you recommend that we do? He's told us that we're going to have different trees in different cities, you know. But what exactly should we be looking at as we begin to plan on this particular project?
Well, I have to just be very snappy on these few things that I've observed over the years. You remember, Elwak to Bema Camp Road used to have a lot of trees along the shoulders of the road. And when they were going to do the expansion, in fact, my company was the consultant for that project from the 37 to Trade Fair T Junction. Most of the trees along the road were all cut down because of the expansion of the road. That is one. Secondly, I observed over the years that sometimes when you plant the trees which are wide roots, not the deep-rooted ones, they affect the very foundation of the road. So the parks and gardens this time around should be able to recommend that all the trees that will be planted along the corridors of the highway, especially within the median, should not be wide root trees instead of, but rather the deep rooted. So they have their roots to actually go deeper than going sideways. That uplifts the road furniture. The other one is this: the government has what we call the legislative instrument on the right of way for our highways and urban roads. So I have the view that once the government has the likelihood of expanding some of the roads, it's only proper that we actually plant those trees at the extreme peripheries of the highways instead of planting the trees just at the shoulders of the road, and then within a matter of 5 years, when the road is ought to be expanded, we have to come and cut it because trees don't take a year to get to a certain height or effect. That is another one. But you see, Morocco also, Morocco has utilized their median so much that they even plant cash crops within the median and they harvest for export. So it's just a good thing that others have done it in Africa, and we're also trying to do the same. I'm just happy that before the completion of the Nsawam Kwafukrom Apeja stretch of the road, the head of the team there had already proposed, even before the government came in with this one, that we should start to plant trees from Nsawam all the way to Apeja Junction to just add to the green. You know, science has shown that when you have the green, an acre of a land, which is about 4,000 square meters, when you have trees on them, and then your vehicles are exhuming this carbon dioxide, that acre of land, which is covered with trees, can absorb over 44,000 mileage of the usage of the vehicle, the carbon that vehicle would actually emit out. So it's only important that when this thing comes into fusion, I think it's going to significantly help to improve the global warming. So that's a good thing from government. So I just expect that it will not just sit on the books and drag a long way before they start, because the trees are not going to grow overnight. Like I said, we have to take care of where we are going to plant the trees. The medians where we have some of the concrete have to be intermittently be cracked, opened, and then plant deep-rooted trees, not the wide trees, so that we don't come back in about 2-3 years that is affecting the furniture of the roof. So we have to cut them off. And then, if need be, if you look at the Kumasi Highway, the median is about 12 meters. At a point, they can be doing what Morocco is doing by planting cash crops, which also affects the economy of the country. I think that's. But the most important one is that we have less green belt within the country now.
Right.
You remember what happened to Dachimota Forest Tagada, where we are still on. So if we are going to plant, say, every 4 meters on the highway would have one tree, it means about 3 kilometers or 2 kilometers of the road, we must have planted more than 300 to 500 trees, which is like an acre. That is significant. So I think we just have to give thumbs up to the Minister for Western
Lansah and Natural Resources.
Just make sure that we push them to do the needful.
Okay. Sorry, engineer. So I don't know if you've used the ridge stretch, let's just say from Paloma to Osu. Something interesting has happened on that stretch around the police headquarters. So the median has been done again, but this time round there's some fencing or barricading. And so I want to believe that's to protect the median and also to prevent hawkers from trampling on the trees and the lawns there. How do we ensure that what we are doing is protected and maintained? Because that's a bigger problem for us here in this part of the world, maintenance.
Well, I think, you see, most of these trees, when they are planted in the initial stages, that's when they need utmost care. After a matter of maybe 5-6 months, when they have gone to a certain stage, the rest more or less depends on nature. You understand? But I think their cording of the place is to actually prevent multiple crossing of the road. So those if you actually do what we call modeling in terms of traffic, you see that the number of times that people cross the road also significantly increase the slow pace of vehicles movement, and then generate a backflow of traffic. So it's not only just even to protect the trees within the median, but to just prevent indiscriminate crossing of the road from every junction or every location, anywhere a passenger is standing or any pedestrian is standing to cross the road. So that is what I think we have to. But I think the advisors of the project, especially the parks and gardens, ought to give us the type of trees that can do well within a matter of half a year, so that we'll not need so much money in trying to see to their total growth.
Okay, so it's important that you bring in the parks and gardens at this point, Engineer Mahama. I just have 2 quick questions for you. In terms of cash crops and the example you've seen, which ones have you seen, and what do you think would be effective in our climate? And how, for example, do you prevent ordinary people from, because, I mean, you know how it is, growing up would attack the mango trees and the rest. How do you prevent that from the general public? The second bit is, right when you were, addressing the situation about the roots and stuff, Pato says, let the minister know when we're interacting with the minister that the roots of trees will destroy the roads. We have seen it on our roads. Come to Golden Tulip and see. So then, if we're going to look at that angle, you've spoken about the width and all of that. What other dynamics should we consider so we don't end up creating more cost for ourselves?
Yeah, well, that's why I just said that. Like you say, when the minister was speaking, he was saying that some of the roads may not have the trees to be planted. Obviously, like I said, we need a proper education or information from those who are specialized in any type of tree to be planted. And I'm saying that we can only do the trees that have a deep root instead of wide roots, whichever way it is. If it's going to be wide root and it's a beautiful one that we think we need, we cannot plant them in the median, because we need to know the area that the root would cover. like I'm saying, there are some medians we have on our highways. The higher or the more you have lands around the corridors of the road, the more the median. You see, when you look at the Ayimensa or Yerefa stretch, we don't have any median. We have a new Jesse barrier, that's the concrete in the middle, to actually separate the two carriageways. It's because of lack of availability of land, more land there. When you get from Amasaman going towards Instagram to down bypass to Apeja Junction, we have luxury of land. So in the design, a 12-meter, 6-meter each at both approaches has been added with the median in the gutter and the drain in the middle. That one, if you have an information from the Works Parks and Gardens that a certain type of tree will be so beneficial, but it cannot go, the root cannot go beyond 6 meters in area in the next 50 years. Then that's good because even before the 50th year, the road might have gone bad. And then when you are doing the redesign of the road, you have factored all those into it. And then you spoke about how to protect. Morocco has some areas they have. I've forgotten the type of fruit that I saw, but they have like orange and it's like cashew in their and that they actually harvest. It's a well-planned program organized by the government, and then they harvest the cash crop and they import and they use some in the country. So I'm just saying that when it comes to the construction or how to do the work, we will take over that one. But when it comes to the advice of the type of trees that we need to use, I think the Parks and Gardens will play a major role in that effect.
Right, Engineer, I think we'd end it here with you. Thank you so much for making time to be with us. Engineer Abdullahi Mahama is a road consultant, sharing his thoughts on what we should be looking at this particular project that government seeks to initiate. We were told that the planning committee will be set up on Monday, Benjamin. And so when that is done, we'll get more info on the nature of this project and how it will be executed.
But let's also have Daryl Bosu of Arusha, Ghana. He joins the conversation. Daryl, a very good morning to you. Hello, Daryl. All right, so we'll work the connection. Hello, Daryl. Can you hear me, Daryl?
Hello, Benjamin. Yes, Benjamin, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I was struggling
Sorry.
Right.
Yeah, sorry I didn't get,
Right. So I was just trying to find out from you, now that we know about these road medians and tree planting, now a tree planting exercise, a lot of concerns have been raised. I don't know whether you followed the conversation we just had, but there's talk of maybe following the Moroccan example. Are you going to do cash crops, oranges, cashew, where they harvest and sell? Are you going to do other trees just for beautification? Also considering the fact that some of them may, produce roots that may impact our roads and all of that. What do you think of the entire project? We haven't put cost or figures to it yet when we spoke to the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources. What do you make of the project generally? And what would be your proposal as an environmentally friendly group?
Well, Benjamin, thank you very much and good morning to you and to your team. I read about this development last night, and I must say I'm very surprised, and I am actually shocked that despite the fact that we have a Green Ghana project, we think it convenient to exclude actions or tree planting activities within the median of our roads. I don't understand it. If you have looked at the summary of the strategy for the Green Ghana agenda for 2022, the planting of trees in the median is included. I only see this as another waste of resources. I'm not even going to talk about whether we're going to plant cash crops or fruit for us to harvest or not. The whole idea is wrong. It's a duplication of Green Ghana idea, and the ministry should quickly scrap it because it is not worth it. Now, let's think about this. We have Green Ghana agenda. There's a committee already sitting on this, thinking about it. And when we were doing the planting, we brought people from immigration, people from prisons, the police, everyone. So why is it different that planting trees in the median will need another committee and will need a whole project on its own?
Does this smack?
It's just unimaginable.
Does this smack of
It's
another?
just unimaginable.
Does this smack of another enterprise to maybe get jobs for some people, boys and girls,
no, Ben,
or maybe to funnel state resources into certain pockets?
As it is. It is just an opportunistic endeavor. Government is just finding ways, and I think the minister really had nothing to say to us. So he just brought that in.
But you do admit, Daryl, you do admit that this is a good initiative, because you mentioned that they should have fed it into the Green Ghana discussion. So it is a good thing. But let's say, on hindsight, the team... hold on, Daryl.
If it is duplication. Yes.
Right. I admit, per what you're saying. But let's say the team, on hindsight, says, we started with this, but come to think of it, we should have added this. Let us do it as a separate thing. Is that wrong?
No. I think it's very, very wrong. You guys shouldn't accept that it's just semantics, and you should really query it. Now, the thing is that when you say Green Ghana agenda, it's supposed to be an inclusive program. You take our watershed, you take our forest, you take our streets. Everywhere there's opportunity to plant trees, you plant trees. Now, already what the ministry could have done was to get in touch with the Ministry of Roads and Highways, who are constantly constructing new roads. And even before they do that, they destroy a lot of trees. Why don't we have a system where the ministry already engineers the road, integrating all the trees that already existed in these areas? For us to have Green Ghana and to go and set up another green street project, I think it's duplication, it's not needed, and the ministry should quickly scrap it. It's just a waste of resources. Green Ghana already was struggling with it. How much resource, how much of taxpayers' money is going to that? They're going to spend another money to set up a new committee. It's just unconscionable, and I think that we shouldn't allow this to happen.
How about the Green Ghana project itself, the initiative? How would you assess it so far, the millions of trees that we've planted in terms of accountability, before my colleague Bernice comes in? Are you with us, Daryl?
And I missed you on that. I'm getting...
So I was saying, moving away from the bit about the street media.
Say that again. Sorry, I missed you.
Yes, I am saying that the Green Ghana initiative itself, the millions of trees we've planted, and no proper assessment in terms of how many have survived. We were told 80 to 85% by the president, but I've not seen any real statistic to back that. And in terms of cost, how would you assess Green Ghana as of now? I think we're struggling with a connection to Daryl, but Bernice, maybe you might have better luck than I have had.
Let me try. Hello, Daryl. No, the lines aren't discriminatory.
No, the lines are actually discriminating this morning. They are discriminating against
All right,
Daryl. But important point he makes there, that it's a duplication of it, and if we had an agenda, I mean, you cannot help but to agree with him to some extent.
Well, there was a good follow-up question you asked him, because he did mention that the Green Ghana project itself has some issues. I'm not quoting him verbatim, but that's what he sought to communicate. So it was a good follow-up question you asked him. Just unfortunately, the lines aren't helping us this morning. But Daryl is with Arusha Ghana, and they've been doing some good work. I remember their campaign against the invasion of the Etiwa forest for bauxite mining. And they did very well. You can follow them. They do a lot of great work when it comes to conservation.
I also want to highlight what they did for the fight against killing pangolins, the ant eaters.
Yes.
And, and that feeds into the Marburg virus conversation. All of these bushmeat, so to speak. People kill pangolins claiming their scales are medicinal and all kinds of things.
They're selling them to Chinese for a lot of money. They pay
I try not to single out or stereotype, but
no, but that's what
the Chinese are.
You're not saying, you're just reporting
everywhere on these matters, eh?
Yes. I saw a story. Is it in Malaysia? One of the places where elephant tusks and pangolin skins and so many other things were being exported, and they were impounded. So like Benjamin is saying, we need to be extra careful when it comes to these things. Well, you're watching the AM show with Benjamin and I. When we come back, we'll be having that conversation on that corruption report by the SRAJ and Ghana Statistical Service and the UN agency. And we've just highlighted a few points for you in that conversation with Samuel Abu-Jinapo, but we'll be delving deeper when we come back. Do stay.